Hello, everyone, and welcome to Problem Solve Her. I'm your co-host, Chloe, along with my beautiful friend,
Dagmar.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Problem Solve Her is an innovative podcast for women that are giving strength to one another. They're sharing their stories and their experiences. And we have on a wonderful guest today. Although it's a male, and this is Problem Solve Her, we do also have Problem Solve Him under the umbrella of Problem Solve Her. And we're going to get into that in a second and tell you who our guest is. I just want to tell everyone that Problem Solve Her is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. As Dagmar would say, please subscribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can also find us on our website, ProblemSolvHer.com. No E on solve, it's a play on words, ProblemSolvHer.com, with all of our offerings. And drum roll, please. Today's guest is Robert Florea. Robert Florea is a man of many talents, and he is an overall business guru. He started as an actor in the 70s in Hollywood. And he, after, being an actor, decided to go into commercial real estate. Very different from residential. He started in Los Angeles with a guy by the name of Stan Brummer, who really taught him a lot of what he knows in real estate. And then he moved to New York when I was 6. Oh, wait, did I not tell you? This is my father, by the way, everybody. Robert Florea is my dad, my father. Woo, woo. My dad's cooler than yours. And we moved to New York when I was 6, and my father started working for a company called Shacker Realty, a huge commercial real estate company on Long Island, New York. And then he took this massive leap of faith after he had a really good run, a short run at this company, and went all the way to the top very quickly and started his own commercial real estate company as a broker and a principal, Robert Florea Investment Realty. And in the late 80s and early 90s, Robert was a pioneer in hiring female brokers when nobody was taking that chance. Even today in this industry, because I was a broker for a little while, I want to say that 95% are men. And it's a very tough, grueling business. And just to show you the difference between commercial and residential, if you do 2 big commercial deals a year, it's massive. And Robert and Florea Investment Realty did over 550 transactions. Whoop, whoop. So without further ado, Robert, aka Rovi, please tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate and decided to have women work for you, and how you empower women, and how you grew up with your grandmother and your mother and your older sister, who really empowered you because they were very strong women.
Well, how I got into real estate was I was acting on episodic television, plays, a couple of movies, doing some directing, and you have a job, you work and you don't work for a month. It was very erratic, and we were starting a family. So Barbara, my wife, said to me, honey, we're raising a family now. We're going to have to get something a little more solid. I go, what do you mean? What do you mean? And long story short, she said, honey, we have to have something that's more consistent. And I said, well, like what? What am I going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she said, well, you have to figure that out. I go, but I'm on my way. I might. Yeah. She goes, no. She goes, what about real estate? I go, real estate? She goes, yeah, real estate. And that's how I got my first job in real estate, which was very narrow. It was just selling apartment buildings in the mid-Wilshire district of LA. So it was only apartment buildings, and it was only in this very narrow area. And after doing that for like about 6 months, I went to my boss and I said, excuse me, I said, there are these other properties we can sell, like shopping centers or office buildings. And he said, well, I said, come on, Stan, let's branch out a little bit. So I got the company into doing all forms of investment sales. And so that's how it started.
Okay.
You want me to keep going, or are you going to ask a question?
Keep going.
Keep
going.
going. Keep going. No,
All
just give the short version of how then you went to your Shacker and you crushed it, and then you
right.
started your own thing.
So we were living in LA, and I mean, my first year in the business, first 12 months, we only worked on exclusive listings. If they didn't give us the exclusive
Then
right to,
explain what that is to listeners and viewers, what an exclusive listing is.
so
Sure.
those in residential understand, that means that if the owner of the property is hiring us to sell his property, and we have the exclusive right to sell, which means anybody else, any other brokers, have to work through us. Even if the owner sells it himself, we still get paid because we're putting in all the effort and the advertising and everything. So the first year in the business, for those who are residential brokers, it's hard to believe, I got 65 exclusive listings. 65.
Wow.
But anyway, so I was doing really well. And after a few years, I started getting offers to head up other companies because I got a little reputation going. And so I discussed it with my wife, my partner, and we actually started saying, you know what, maybe we're better off going back to New York because there were so many problems in LA, the smog, there were earthquakes. The educational system was really bad at that time for the kids. And, and I kind of, we went there because of showbiz, and we're out of showbiz, so we didn't really have to be in LA anymore. Anyway, so we made the transition to move back to New York, which is what we did. And again, I took a big chance because I had to start all over again. And I started with this company. Well, first of all, I went around Long Island and met with the 5 top commercial firms. None of them were doing investment sales. It was all leasing or what they call user sales, like you're selling a building to someone who's going to put their company in the building as the tenant. So no, and they said, no, you can't. We'll start you out and then I go, no. I'm only interested in resuming my investment sales. So the last company I went to, the owners of that company owned a lot of investment properties themselves. And they said, oh my God, this is perfect. So I was like the first one on Long Island to form a division only focusing on investment sales. And after, I think, about 2.5 years, I did a lot of really good deals. And the one that really pushed me was getting a gentleman by the name of Joseph Moynihan started by selling him a package of 13 or 14 buildings in Manhattan, a package of 14 buildings. And he was running a garment center company called Billy Jack for Her, and he wanted to really get into to investment sales. And so I kind of got him started with this big package. And as a matter of fact, when we went to the closing of these 14 deals, Joe asked my seller, do you have anything else you want to sell? And he goes, yeah, I've got this other property. And we made it 15. So we sold another one right at the closing. But I got a big commission on that, and it gave me the incentive to go out on my own. So, but it was risky. And I had to go to, I had some capital, of course, but I had to go to the bank to set it up because I had to sign a new lease and get furniture and phones. It was before computers, so I didn't have to worry about that. I had to get a fax machine. It was all starting a company.
Fax machine? You must be talking about the 80s.
Yo, baby, the 79s. Yeah, 80s. So anyway, so I got the loan, I got started, and I was fortunate. I got another big client out of Chicago called JMB Realty, and they were huge, and I started doing deals with them, and I started hiring other people, and it was just natural for if there was a woman that wanted to do it, I thought she maybe had the possibility. Why not? So, and there were no females in commercial real estate on Long Island except for leasing. There were some very good women. As a matter of fact, I worked with some women at Shacker, and they were terrific. I mean, they were really good. So I said, well, why wouldn't they be able to? Just because there's no other women doing it now, if they could do that, then a woman could do
But
in
it was
commercial.
still risky, Dad, aka Rob, for you to
Right.
do that because there, as you said, there were no female brokers. I remember, and we're not going to go into the years because my age is going to come out. When I started working for you, um, in the, I want to say that was still in the early 2000s, and there still weren't a lot of women. I would call and they say, what are you, Bob's secretary? No, this is his daughter. I'm actually a broker. Oh, you're a broker? Yeah, I have 120 units in Brooklyn. Are you interested? They didn't understand that there were even then. So you really were like a serious pioneer. I remember some of the women specifically, Susan, and you also had some powerhouse women like Phyllis helping to run your office. So if you wouldn't mind telling people, because I think it's really important that men empower women, especially we're going back 40 years, how important it was to have female brokers on your team and to help run your entire office and your operation, because the assistants are really, the ones that are helping pulling everything together.
I mean, I really never differentiated between a male or a female. It wasn't like, oh, well, this is a female doing it and this is a man. It's just like if someone had the potential, if someone was qualified, because every single person for the first few number of years that I hired had zero real estate experience, male or female. None of them had experience. And I trained them very, very carefully. And my main source of training was sitting them in front of my desk, getting on calls with clients, putting them on the speakers, and they would hear the negotiations all day long and just kind of usurp, what I was doing and what we were doing on the phones with these clients. And they just, all of that information, they sucked it up. And that's how they learned how to negotiate on these big deals.
I'm pretty sure you can have people sitting in front of you and they listen to you for years and they are not successful. So what are the skills you saw in the men and women you hired that you knew when they were sitting in front of you, they not only could absorb it, but also execute it?
It's a good question. First of all, in the beginning, I had to get people. I didn't want to be in a vacuum. If you do this by yourself, with one or it's not good. You need a team. So in the beginning, I wasn't that picky. So I wasn't like, oh, I don't know if this. Later, then I had to be, more choiceful in who I would take a chance on. But in the beginning, I just wanted to get people. They had to have a nice appearance. They had to be intelligent, because I knew that I could train well. I was a good trainer because I did some film directing, so I know how to communicate with people. I know how to train people in essence, and I knew I would be able to train almost anybody. And so there weren't a lot of requirements. You had to be able. Oh, what you had to be able to do is get a real estate license, and you had to sustain yourself financially for anywhere from 4 to 12 months before you're going to make your first
But
deal.
Dad, explain why, because you're not allowed to give a salary in real estate. Explain in commercial real estate, especially.
You can
Well, you
do
can
it.
give a draw. You can give a draw, but explain a little bit about that.
Well, basically, real estate is a commission based. If you're a salesperson, you only get paid when you do a deal. Later I was able to, say, okay, I'm going to give you a draw for a while, because that's how I got started. As a matter of fact, going back to when I got started, and I interviewed for my first job with Stan Brummer Company, I said to him, listen, I have to get a I'm kind of a draw because I've got 2 kids, little kids, and my wife. And the only reason I'm changing careers is because I need to know every week. And he was like, we don't do that. This is strictly commission. And fortunately, I met his wife. She was kind of working part-time. And she said, Stan, this guy, I got a feeling. So it happened to me. And then later I did it. But in the beginning, they had, whether they were living with their parents or the girlfriend worked or the boyfriend worked or the husband worked, and they could sustain for a period of time. And so that was an important component. And then the rest, I knew I trained people from all walks of life, really.
But Dad, going back to Dagmar's question, there are certain skills. So once you really got going and you were a little bit, we want to say, we want to be politically correct here. Once the business was taking off and you wanted to find the right men and women, there were certain qualities. Right. And there are a few things that you really do need to be successful in the business. I think that's more of what she's asking. What would you say if you're going to be successful, not residential, because it's very different, and you can get into that in a minute. What would you say are the top 3 most important for a commercial broker to succeed? What characteristics do they need?
Hungry / highly motivated, very likable. People like to do business with people they like.
He's
I know that.
All right, now you know where I got that from, Dad.
It's a fact, because especially, you're spending a certain amount of time with somebody. They'd rather spend time with someone that they like than, some people are cold, some people are a little rough around the edges. You want to work with somebody that you feel good at, you feel connected to. So that's number 2. And number 3, in this particular field, you've got to have a pretty good head for numbers. Although one of my top people that I hired had no feel for numbers. And even after a few years, he goes, I forget, is that 12 million or 120 million? Is that 400,000 or 4 million? I forgot. It was 0. I mean, he was like, he had no idea. But he was amazing. He would go out, he'd bring donuts to the secretary, and we love him, he's great. Every time he'd come in there, flowers, and he would just go like, silly basic stuff, and then he'd get on, get his way in there. So, and he was phenomenal. People they thought he was funny. Good sense of humor goes a long way too.
And what about every time we would go out to lunch as a group, what would he order every single time? He had one meal when we went out for sushi.
No. This particular guy would do, you'd be sitting there and everybody's getting towards the end of a meal, and he'd go, are you going to eat that? And he'd grab it. Before you could answer, he'd go, yeah, you're not going to eat that, right? And you just take right off your plate. I go, Rob,
he was hungry.
He was crazy.
He didn't want to order extra food, but he was wearing a Rolex.
Right, exactly.
He was resourceful. Isn't that what they say?
What's that?
Resourceful. Resourceful.
Yeah, resourceful is a very good quality. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was wondering about it, I can imagine is hard work, but it sounds so easy when you say it. So as you moved to New York and you started from scratch and you didn't know anybody, how did you approach it, getting the leads or getting the sales?
Well, first of all, right, one of the components that we didn't bring up is something called, you have to have a lot of chutzpah or nerve or other words, but you really
Dagmar just learned that word, and she's German. I'm like, doesn't everyone in the Eastern Bloc know what that is? Yeah, you have to have the chutzpah.
You can't be shy. If you have chutzpah and you're not afraid of people. Now, I had a little advantage because I was a highly trained method actor, so I learned how to be able to relate to, well, now in my life, I can relate to anyone. I don't care. You could be a king, you could be a ditch digger, and everything in between. You've got to be able to have the love of people. If you love people, you can connect with anybody. So you have to be that's an important factor. And that's what I did. I would just call people. I would show up Woody Allen had a saying, showing up is 90%, no matter what you're doing. Showing up, you're 90% there. You could be on the phone here, there, but showing in person, a little less so today with everything that's going on, but showing up is really important. Because when you show up, the energy is right there. It's either happening or it's not happening. And if people are feeling your energy and you're feeling back, you got a real high chance of doing some business with them. But you've got to show up. I showed up I didn't care where I had to go. I showed up all the time.
So what you're saying is, don't talk about it, don't think about it, don't dream about it, take action.
Absolutely. Always. Taking action is what it's all about.
So for your own business, as you build your own business, what were the struggles? Because like, I can't imagine commercial real estate, like with the high numbers. What was the struggle at the beginning that you had to overcome to create success?
Well, first of all, I have to admit that whatever the good Lord, planned, when I got into the business in Los Angeles, it was the most perfect timing. And I mean, I got caught up in it, and it was just straight up like halcyon. There was a period of time when I was doing this in Los Angeles where the price of the value of these properties were going up 10% per month. So if you made a deal and you go to there, it was escrow. If you go to escrow, like a contract here, and it's a 90-day escrow, by the 90th day, that property could have gone up 30% in value. And they go, I just found out, I'm not selling. I'm not doing it. And they try to get out of it, but they couldn't. They already signed, And when I left LA, the market went like this. And going to New York, the market was just starting to go up like this. So
Oh my God, it followed you. It followed you.
But you still had struggles within the business. It's good. It's good for people to understand what some of the struggles are when you take a leap of faith and start your own business. As amazing as you are, and when you were in Who's Who of the East, was that 1989 or 92? Yeah, you can explain to Dagmar what that is. It's a very cool achievement. There were still struggles, Dad, and there were times you were like, "How am I going to do it?" You have to make 75, 100 phone calls a day.
Okay, well, I'd have to go back and think about the early struggles because, believe it or not, the real struggles came when the environment, the business environment, like in 2008, that was way later, and there was there was nothing going on. It was like no matter what I could try, nobody was making deals. So
it was a crash.
And I was like, oh my, what am I going to do? Am I going to have to close the business? Am I going to have to try something? I mean, I was like trying to figure out what to do. But before that, again, I just got lucky and I immediately started doing everything just fell into place. Everything just perfectly fell into place. I mean, maybe there were a couple of slow months in between, but I'm telling you, for the first number of years, it was just smooth sailing. It was just, there weren't a lot of challenges. Now, in the very beginning,
he had the chutzpah. What can he say? I mean, he's
no, but in the very, very beginning, I opened the doors and I was like, I gotta start making some deals right away because, I didn't have carryover deals from Shacker because they would have belonged to them anyway. I had money in the bank because I did a lot of business there, but that goes quick because you have your personal expenses and then you had your nut at the company. I had 2 secretaries I was paying the phone bills. I rented a brand new space in a brand new building. So the rent was very high. I did some advertising. I mean, there's a lot of expenses when you're starting out and it does take time to get a deal and contract and then time period could be from a minimum of 30 days to months to close for that income to come in. And so, you know, I just kept my nose to the grindstone. Nothing was going to stop me. My kids were still small in the beginning years there. And, you know, I had the incentive of a family. I mean, when
you had a perfect daughter. I mean, come on, things couldn't be
no,
better.
when you have a wife and children and you're the breadwinner, and it could be the woman. I mean, there are a lot of men who they call Mr. Moms. The woman is the breadwinner. As a matter of fact, when we were just a couple, it was just the two of us, and we came out to California, Barbara she had jobs. She had some great jobs. And I wasn't working.
She was a producer at ABC at a rock show in concert.
Wow.
She was one of the producers of a show called In Concert, where every week, whoever was the hottest act in the 70s, this is in the 70s, whether it was Alice Cooper or you name it, whoever was hot, Minnie Riperton, goes on and on and on. They filmed at the Grand Ole Opry. Every single biggest country artist was on that show, and she booked them all and helped put it all together. So she was supporting me for years, and I'm trying to get a job. And then it came down to the last one was there were like 20 of us up for this part. We were all newcomers, and it came down to 10 of us, 8 of us, 6 of us. And then it was me and this one other guy. My whole life would have changed, and I obviously would have stayed as an actor. And somebody else got
Say who it was.
Richard Gere. So that was his first big part, looking for Mr. Goodbar. He got it. I didn't. I cried. And that was the end of my career, pretty much. With, also I had if I would have stayed, if I would have got the part, it would have been different. But it was time to make a career change so that I could take care of my family.
How did you meet your wife?
Well, this was very interesting. I was like 20, I don't know, about 20, about 21, 22 years old.
Don't give out ages, then people will figure out my age. You were 17.
Anyway, I was 3 years old. No, I had since I was a trained actor, but I was also interested in directing and writing. And I went to, there was this directing teacher at the new school, and he was one of Andy Warhol's first directors. He was a director for Andy Warhol, and he taught this directing class at the new school. And one of the things was we had to have a project, so we'd all get together, and we had different films we were making. So I became like assistant producer, assistant director. I mean, I knew more about directing than the actual director, but he put up the money, so he became the director. But I did all the casting, I did all the help direct, I did the rehearsing, I did the location. I was working like seriously 18 hours a day on this project. And at the end, when we were finished, I mean, I was wiped out. I mean, even at a young age, it took, I'd go home, go to sleep, and wake up and go back to work. And so we finally finished. We wrapped it's called Jigsaw Puzzle, great film. And I said to my mom, I go, Mom, I just got to go somewhere. I mean, I hadn't traveled much at all. I was young. And I said, Mom, what should I do? I just got to relax. And she goes, go to Jamaica. And I said, Jamaica? Well, I go to Jamaica. Anyway, so I went to Jamaica, went out to the grill, and then I was from New York, so I didn't have much money left. Going back to Montego Bay, so we go up this. I go to the main road. I had hair down to here, and I'm hitchhiking.
Which is as long as mine.
Right, basically. I'm hitchhiking. I look like an American Indian. And all of a sudden, this Volkswagen Bug stops. I look in, 4 co-eds, 4 college girls.
That no one says co-eds anymore. They say today 4 hotties were in the car.
4 hotties were in the car. So anyway, I jumped through the window. I go, "Hi, girls." No, I got and ended up marrying the driver. That's how I met my wife.
The driver. The most beautiful, hottest girl ever.
Ever.
That's why I'm not married yet, because their story is out of a movie. So I'm like, unless I get something close to that, forget. I'm not meeting a guy online and doing these apps and doing things. It has to. I have to topple that for me to settle down.
How many hitchhikers are you taking?
No, but I got lucky because she had a sister that was running a college in a women's college in Manhattan, and so she went to visit her, and we got together there. And then my wife Barbara was going to school at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I flew out to Ann Arbor for the summer, so everything was falling into place.
Wait, Dad, you forgot one thing. You flew out to Ann Arbor for the summer. Then you invited your sister, my favorite aunt of all time, Crenny, who we miss dearly. And then she stayed. And Mom said, "What's going on? I've got Rob's here, his sister's here. Everyone's moving in for the summer."
And Maggie, I think, and Maggie was there, or Gunther. She brought Gunther.
My cousin. You guys brought the whole. It's a real Jewish mashpucha. Everybody was there. But Dad, before we go back to some of the real estate, because I want to dive a little bit more into, for you to explain to listeners the difference between residential and commercial, because it's a huge difference. And then before we finish, we're going to talk about the master class that you're going to be doing with Dagmar and I. We're going to do once a month a business master class, and we're going to have a special guest, and you're going to be our first, obviously, and we're going to talk about that. But explain what it's like, because remember, this is about empowering women and inspiring women and men that grew up around very strong, independent women. You had a Ukrainian grandmother who came over from Odessa, and your mother, my beautiful grandmother, Millie, and your older sister, Karen, who had a huge influence, who wouldn't let anyone near you in school. You come near my brother, Rob, we're going to have problems. So talk about those 3 women and how they really helped shape you as a child and gave you a lot of confidence.
And Kitty. You're forgetting Kitty.
Oh, my great-grandma Kitty. She lived till 98, Dagmar. And at 95, she said to me, "Don't hold my hand. I can walk by myself."
Well, and what was interesting, they were all somewhat different. All 4 of them. They were all different. My mother she was like almost like a hippie in a way, because she was all about showing love and being kind to people and humility. I mean, she taught me like some not the strong, powerful, go-getting stuff, but the really important stuff in life, giving and exchanging love towards people, being humble, don't be such a big shot, and being a good person, being a good, decent person. My father's mother, she was a little tough. She taught, you got to be tough. And she said one line to me, which was, "Always remember, save for a rainy day." I was like, and when I finally realized what that really meant, that's what got me into investing for the future. Because investing is very important. You could be making millions every year and spending the millions, and all of a sudden you've got nothing if you don't put away and create a portfolio of investments that are going to carry you so that you can get to a certain place in your life where you don't have to work anymore and you don't have to be constrained, and you can also provide to some degree for your children and grandchildren. So that's very, very important. She just said, "Save for a rainy day." And I figured out what that really meant. My grandmother from Ukrainian, my mother's mother from Odessa, the amount of love and affection and warm vibes were like, just being in her presence, she was just, she again, she gave me that, that warm feeling, that, loving feeling, caring feeling. And that was, but she was still strong. As a matter of fact,
Dad, tell briefly the poker, just really quick.
she played big poker games like 5 nights a week. So I would be at her house. She had this big round poker table. There would be 7 people at the table playing, and there would be like another 10 people behind them waiting for somebody to drop out so that they could get into the game. This was like big time poker. And then they'd go to other places to play. So she was like a professional poker player. Her husband was he had over 100 professional boxing matches, professional, that he got paid.
Wow.
And he was in the ring record book. He never got knocked down, not once. Out of all
And
his,
he was like 5'6".
he was
Strong
well,
guy, yeah.
but he was good. He was good.
And he was, wait, where was he from again? He came from
It's Germany.
Yeah, see, Dagmar.
So he had smuchba. Is that how you say it?
Chutzpah.
Chutzpah.
Oh yeah, he had a Jaime, come out from under the bed. Jaime.
Well, that's how he got to become a boxer. The toughest kid in school said, "Oh, I hear you're a tough guy." He goes, "No, not me." He said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get you after school." So as soon as school was over, he lived in the east side in a tenement house. He ran home, and the kid ran after him. He ran up the 5 or 6 flights and slid under the bed. And his mother was, she spoke Yiddish. She goes, Jaime, what are you doing under the bed? What's wrong? He goes, next thing you knew, the kid that was after him was down in the street yelling up at his mother and like cursing his mother up. Where's your son? And my grandfather heard it. He ran out of the bed, ran down the stairs, came in the street and beat the living daylights out of this guy. This guy was out cold. And they grabbed him. They go, you're going to the gym. You're going to become a boxer. And that was it, man. So that's
What a story.
There's so much. If you want to hear these, Dad, we need a month to do that. Dad, go back, because I think it's really important, because there's a lot of people, especially in residential. And residential, interestingly enough, I would say are at least 50%, if not more, females, right, in residential. But if there are women that are looking to get into either residential or commercial, can you please explain the difference? And if they have the chutzpah and they have the patience, why commercial in the end will make you more money and it's more challenging? Not that there's anything wrong with residential. I love residential. I've done a few residential deals, but just kind of give a little.
Well, I mean, there are differences, and there are certain things that are the same. First, they're both real estate. And it's a similar negotiating. The way to negotiate is similar, but a little different. I mean, I'm not going to go through a whole. This is like part of the master class, so I didn't really want to get too specific.
No, just give some people a crumb so they can get excited before the class.
No, but what I can tell you is this: that the women who are successful in residential sales are perfect to learn investment sales, and I'm the guy to show you how to do it. It's a perfect transition, and I would
leave it at that. That's good. That's the crumb. They're perfect transition.
So is commercial sales today similar as it was 10, 15 years ago?
I mean, things have changed a little bit. You're still dealing with the main difference between the owners, which means the buyers and sellers of commercial, as opposed to the buyers and sellers of homes or apartments, are that the big boys are much more flamboyant, much more eccentric, crazier, a little tougher. But a lot of the women who are selling the big houses, those guys are the same guys. So if they're selling a 10, 20, $30 million estate, those are the guys that are also buying and selling shopping centers, medical buildings, office buildings, apartment buildings. Is the same guys.
No, she's asking how in the last 15 years has commercial changed at all, the shifts,
Oh,
the
commercial.
swing and...
I mean, I think things are mostly the same. The market has tightened up a little bit. In other words, in the past, I mean, deals were flying off the shelves. I mean, you couldn't, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, you just deal after deal after deal. And, it's like 80 to 90% of the deals got made. Now, people, everybody's a little more, careful. It's a little slower. There's still plenty of deals being made, but it's just a little bit more tender, a little more tender than it was then. Then it was like a Wild West. Now it's a little more, careful. Got to dot the I's a little bit more, make sure, okay, a little bit more due diligence. And then there was banks were basically giving the money away. They just had to get it out there. Today, although lenders now are opening up more for commercials, so it's getting better again like that. Yeah.
Dad, if you were to give, because unfortunately we're winding down. All this
Right.
has been amazing. You've been fabulous. You've been fabulous. As we wind down, and again, and before we end, I'm going to plug the masterclass. But as a man who's been married for 50 years and has a daughter and has a strong independent wife and a strong independent
and a son.
And a son, but I'm only because this is geared toward women. That's why you have a fabulous tall son who's skinny, and I'm short and just trying to look cute. What advice would you give to young females today? We're not going to talk about the masterclass, but young females today that are a little confused or not sure what to do or what direction because you've had a lot of women around you. What advice would you give them? Just kind of like the short version.
Well, you've heard of meditation or different things like that. I would say that remember, there's the outer world and then there's the inner world. So I would suggest if you're confused or if you're not sure and you're looking, just go into your own little special place, be totally silent, no distractions, and just sit for a little while as if you were meditating. And then ask the question, what would be the best thing for me right now? And don't struggle to get an answer. Just sit there and let it come to you. Or whatever question you want to know. What direction should I go in? Or should I do this or should I do that? Just kind of ask the question and just sit with it until it comes. And then you might have to do it the next day.
Namaste.
But that's exactly. Namaste.
No, that's good advice. I think a lot of people are so, they're impatient, younger people, and they're just quick to make a decision. Sit with your thoughts, think about it, dive into it, and allow yourself that time. I think we all should do that more at any age. I agree with you. But we really appreciate you coming on as our first male on Problem Solve Her.
I have a question before we finish.
Yeah.
How did you handle, so it sounds like things came to you, but you also saw others going through struggles in commercial real estate or in having a business or business partners. From your life experience, what would you say? Is there a work-life balance? And if there is one, how important is it?
Yes. First, I'm going to tell you one story. When
Dagmar, you did this. It's going to be over an hour now, but it's okay because we're flowing.
That's important because at the end, that's the problem of many work-life
I know, I'm
balance.
messing around.
And some say there is none, and others say it's important. So I'm curious.
Well,
From a
first of all,
man who had success.
when the so-called crash came in '08 and everything was like upside down, we had, I don't know, whatever, 6, 7, 8 deals in the pipeline. And one by one, they started falling. Everything, this was like, the next year's deals were all happening. And they all started falling down. And I went home and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got to pay the rent. I got to pay my people. What am I going to do? This was like, everything came to a standstill. The next day I came to work. I had a big, chair and desk and everything. I refused to sit down. I stood up and I made 100 calls a day. I was like, when the tough, what do they say? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I refused to fail. And I kept doing that. And after a while, this deal came back, a new deal, and it all, I could have been, I could have gotten frozen. And I go, what am I going to do? Oh, shit. And fear. The thing is, we have to reject fear. Fear does not serve us. This is my opinion. Fear, first we can recognize it. Okay. Recognize the fear. You can't ignore it. It's there. You take it in, you look at it, and then you deal with it. But it can't take you over because it's easy for fear to take over. Once it takes us over, then it becomes more difficult. So we have to stand up to fear. That is the number one thing that I would, share.
No, the work-life balance, though.
It blocks you.
Yeah, but the work-life balance is her question, which is a very good, because a lot of people have different opinions.
Well, I mean, I was kind of the extreme with that because I would, when we built our villa in Jamaica, and we would go there 4 times a year, like 6 weeks in the summer, 3 weeks of Christmas. I was spending 4 months a year there. I was obviously could have been working, doing twice as good as well as I did, but I was like, plus I was doing some other traveling. Because you talk about balance,
Boy, Daddy, not easy a touch road, eh?
But when I was there, I was on the phone making deals from anywhere. And when I got back, I was on 2 phones at the same time. Tell them I'm calling back. Hold on that one. I mean, it was like on the stock exchange.
You were one of the first guys that had Dagmar. I don't know if you remember these. They were in the movies. There was a cell phone in the car. His Mercedes did his thing. And this was part of the selling of it. If you buy this Mercedes, there's a phone in the car. And the phone would ring in the car, which is not like how it does today where you connect the Bluetooth. It was actually you couldn't take it out of the car. It was a phone that was only in the vehicle. And from the time we got in the car until we were going, the phone would ring off the hook in that thing.
Yeah. What's interesting, what your dad just said, Chloe, is, I learned and I read a lot about regulating your nervous system. And especially when you come into a situation that triggers you, right? So unexpected things, you and I talked about it the other day, the fear of the unknown. And some people freeze and some people flee. And some people use fighting to regulate the nervous system. And that was just, thank you for sharing that, Robert. I think that's a beautiful example, using fighting in a positive way to not destroy, but to build. So that was beautiful. And as you shared it, I could feel my emotions coming up. I'm pretty sure everybody was in a situation once, at least in their lives, where you felt out of control and everything is pulled from underneath your feet. And then to still stand and move forward and not just show actions, but give whatever you can. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Robert.
If I can add to that, now I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God. He's such a great dad. Like, he's just so amazing. He drives me crazy because we're very similar, but
Yeah, you're similar.
yeah, but he's such an amazing dad. He's done everything for us our whole life. He's so loving. He's so generous. He gave us such an incredible life growing up, and he worked so hard. But we played really hard. I remember the first summer I went to Europe when I graduated high school. All my friends were coming here to Florida, and everyone's like, "You're going to Italy?" You know, and I just thought that was so cool. Not like to brag, but just like that I was able to have that opportunity to do that with my family, and I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot of my chutzpah from him, but I have my own chutzpah as well. Um, and I'm just so happy that he's here with us today. You look good, Dad. You look very good. For 65, you look incredible. And we're just so happy to have you. I just got emotional because just hearing all the stories and bringing it back from growing up, and it's so nice that you're sharing that with us. And I love you so much. And you are the Hammer. That was his name, Dagmar, just so you know, in his company, everyone calls him the Hammer because he always got the deals done. And I just want to tell our listeners that, and I'm not just saying this because we're blood related and we share DNA, the Jewish chutzpah, but the masterclass that we will be having towards the end of August, hopefully, or the very beginning of September, we can't do it online with 20 or 30 women, obviously, because then it would be very hard to get it done in that type of a setting. So 8 to 10 max, where we do a business course, the three of us in different areas, a 2-hour online masterclass. So for more information, please go to our website, ProblemSolvHer.com. Again, no E on solve, ProblemSolvHer.com, and write to Dagmar and I directly. You can also write us on Instagram at ProblemSolvHer, on YouTube as well. And we look forward to seeing everybody soon. And I can't believe I cried for the first time on here, but Robert, Florea, thank you so much. We love you. And Dagmar, I hope you enjoyed the Florea duo today.
Yeah, what's awesome. For me, my takeaway from that is you can be kind and compassionate and empathetic and successful.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome for women and for men.
Say it loud and proud, girl. That's true.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. Was
Love
my
you
pleasure.
all. Ciao, everybody.
Ciao. Please note that the views shared by our guests are their own. We invite honest stories and diverse perspectives, but they don't necessarily reflect our opinions or serve as professional advice.